everybody, and welcome back to another review of this Oxford United season. It's time for the FA Cup Round 1, and it was the Timmy Mallett Derby because Oxford were at home to Maidenhead United. So it's the magic of the FA Cup, and it's so magical that I couldn't watch the bloody thing because they never put it on iFollow, and so it's unavailable to watch. Fantastic stuff, as you know. So I've drafted in a ringer for the first time this season. You should know him well. He's appeared on a few of these videos. I only bring him on for the really big games and special occasions, and it just so happened that he did go to the game. So Robert, welcome to the channel for the first time for this 23-24 season.
Well, I'm just glad my suspension is up. I'm finally allowed back onto the channel. I apologise for all the offensive things I've said in the previous videos, and I promise to do better in the future.
Well, if you're wondering what it was that he said and did, you just have to go back and watch those old videos because
All of them.
It's too long of a rap sheet to get into it now. But anyway, back to the details on the pitch. Were there any banana skins in play today? No, they weren't. Oxford wasn't pretty, wasn't great, but Oxford made it into round 2. It finished Oxford United 2, Maidenhead United 0. So what we will do today is Robert will do the lion's share of the match review. Not that it will take that long to pick apart this one because not too much happened, but I will give the team news just quickly and we will give our final thoughts at the end, and maybe we'll even have time to go into was that Liam Manning's final game in charge of Oxford United? Let's jump into that team news. First of all, Oxford United, we weren't sure on how many changes Manning would make to the side that beat Lincoln on Tuesday night. But he made 4 in total. Eastwood started in goal. Negru came back into the defence alongside with Jordan Thornley, and they played with Elliot Moore, so it was a back 3 again. In midfield, Marcus McGuane had a little bit of a rest, and so Josh McEachran played in midfield alongside Brannigan. And pretty much other than that, it was as you were for this Oxford United lineup. On the bench, Sonny Perkins, rare appearance, and James Henry, back from injury, hopefully, fingers crossed for him, for the rest of the season. Alan Devonshire's Maidenhead side, they are struggling. The Magpies are struggling down near the foot of the conference, the National League, I should say, table. They sit in 20th place, and they went on a really long winless run, but they did overcome that last weekend with a 3-2 win over Eastleigh. But that is they're not particularly great side and not having a particularly great season. They don't keep a lot of clean sheets. In fact, it's since September the 2nd that last time they have had a shutout. They did draw 0-0 with Oxford City earlier on in the season. Reece Smith, probably their biggest threat. He has 4 goals on the season from midfield. And the last time Oxford United got knocked out of the FA Cup by a non-league side, whilst they are a league side. Do you know who that was, Robert?
No, who?
It was Marlow.
Was it that
back in the mid-90s? You can look that one up, kids. So you wouldn't expect any hiccups in this game, and obviously, as we know, there weren't any. But let's move on to the game then, Robert, and I'll let you lead in to what you. First of all, you can go over what you thought of the team, and then just what you thought of the game, and kind of the floor is yours on this one.
Well, the team, like we said, starts off with 3 at the back, and it's good to see Thornley and Negru make an appearance. With Sam Long being out for a while now, this is a good audition piece for the 2 of them to potentially get a chance on the side if we are going to continue with the back 4. And it looks quite a decent side. I sent you a WhatsApp message beforehand and I was wanting people like Max Waltran and Alex Gorin to get games and all the rest of it. But, I'm thinking that was a good solid side to put out against it. The match itself, pretty dull, to be brutally honest. There was not an awful lot to mention about it. The Oxford seemed to be very lackluster. They were not that trying, but they were certainly in second gear for most of the game. They were sort of plodding along. They were not really sort of you can tell there was a couple of times when we gave away possession and we were looking quite sloppy. And the impression I got, it was from a side who were a little bit overconfident, who thought this is a side that we should get through quite easily. And Maidenhead, to their credit, played very well in the first half, certainly. They put Oxford under a lot of pressure. They won the balls back in decent places. Negru, I can remember one chance where he gave the ball away and they recorded Eastwood to make a decent save. But for the first sort of 10, 15 minutes of the game, it was pretty much all Maidenhead, really. They're the ones who sort of played the best football. They didn't create much, but they were sort of very good at sort of like frustrating our attacks. Oxford would pick up the ball at the back and march forward, lose possession. Maidenhead would break quickly and it would break down, and that sort of repeated itself again and again for a while. Our first real decent attack we scored from.
And that seems to be a thing, doesn't it? It's like these games we've had, a few of these games we've had now, where the game sort of just meanders along a little bit and not much happens. And all of a sudden, Oxford just click into gear and they get themselves 1-0 up. From what I heard, it sounded like a good team goal by Bodin. But yeah, it did sound like that was the first time Oxford kind of laid a glove on Maidenhead.
Yeah, pretty much. Stanley Mills got the ball, cutting from the right, fired in a decent cross, and there was Bodin and Harris in the box, but Bodin was there and he finished it well. I mean, I was saying to you recently that goal of the season is going to be an absolute pain in the arse to choose this season because we've scored some absolute belters already. This wouldn't be one of them, but it's certainly a very good, well worked team goal. No, it was just solid, good finish by Bodin, nice goal. And at that point, you're thinking, oh, Oxford might click on from there. And for the next 5 minutes or so, we did seem to sort of press forward, but we then seemed to go into our usual trick of let's try doing elaborate passes and trying to sort of intricately play our way through, where it didn't really work. As this half went on, Maidenhead got more and more into it, and so much so they required a decent save from the Eastwood. They were putting pressure on there. So when it got to 1-0 at half time, Oxford were quite comfortable, but the result was still in balance, and you were still thinking Oxford could screw this up.
Just to say, the Maidenhead player who missed those two good chances, it was Mitchell Lawson. Put one over the bar, and then Eastwood did make a good save. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's and credit to Maidenhead, right? I mean, much of it we'll talk about Oxford being asleep and lackluster and stuff, but credit to Maidenhead for coming and giving it a real good go. And maybe Oxford a little bit fortunate that we weren't up against a non-league side that was a little bit higher up and in a little bit better form. Otherwise, we really might have been in for a bit of a sticky afternoon tonight. That afternoon at the Kassam. But half time, 1-0. You're just kind of hoping Oxford could kind of get this job done and come out and be a bit more clinical in the second half. It's a common theme that we say throughout Oxford games on this video, but it didn't seem like they did. It seemed like it was pretty lackluster at the start of the second half as well.
We look like we changed formation. We seem to go switch to back four. I'm not quite sure when the back four switch happened, because I say watching it live from the game, you only sort of noticed it sort of like a little way into the start of the second half. But for the first 5-10 minutes second half, it was all Maidenhead attacking us. You mentioned Reece Smith at the start, and the common thread near where I was sitting, the South Stand Upper, was that people were saying, "Who's that number 17? He looks bloody good." And he looked bloody good, in fairness.
Yeah,
He really looked a player who was really putting us under a lot of pressure. And Eastwood was called upon again to make a decent save. There was another one where it just went just over the crossbar as well. They had a succession of about 3 corners in a row, and yeah, they were really putting Oxford under the pressure. But as the second half got on, we seemed to adjust the new system more, such a system better. I always think we're better with a back four, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of the back three. Interestingly, is on the right, Stanley Mills has been able to get forward quite a lot when he was playing at wing back, but Greg Lee wasn't able to get forward anywhere nearly as much. He was really struggling on this side, and I don't know whether he wasn't getting enough support from Goodrum or getting anything like that. But he really was not able to impact the game that in the way he has been effective in recent days. With the back four, it looked a little bit more solid, but we still didn't look overly creative, though.
I think that too. I mean, I just felt like we played with a bit more freedom when it happened against Lincoln, rather than sometimes a bit ponderous when we've got those when we do play the wing backs, it's kind of, I think, like the balance of the side just doesn't quite look right. But yeah, I mean, so for a case of Reece Smith, it could be a case of like, it might be a case that he has to give up your day job, Reece, because you might be destined for bigger and better things as a professional footballer rather than a part-time footballer. But yeah, he definitely did look like he was a standout player, sound like he was a standout player for Maidenhead. Substitutions make a difference for Oxford when they came on.
Yeah, the main one came later in the game, Marcus McGuane. Marcus McGuane coming on really turned the game. McGuane and Brannigan in midfield, it looks suddenly a lot more dynamic. You had
Different level,
McGuane
isn't it?
charging forward. No disrespect to Josh McEachran, I think he's a decent player, but you can tell when it's not Brannigan and McGuane in midfield, our midfield does not seem anywhere near as much threatening. McEachran could be a very decent substitute to have over the course of the season, and I'm sure we will need him. But it's definitely McGuane and Brannigan are our top players. Uh, Rodriguez came on. He looked good. He played well. He was busy. He played like Rodriguez always does. Murphy came on. Murphy played like he has played in recent games. To be honest with you, he didn't really contribute an awful lot.
Oh, that's a shame to hear. I was hoping you were going to say he came on and did all right.
I really wish I could because I really want him to come good. But
Yes.
it started off. Bear in mind, starting off the season, people were talking about how nice it is that he's starting to finally find his feet. But his last few substitute appearances, he's barely got in the game, and he just a number of times he just picked up the ball and he just did nothing with it. And it got near the end of the match. I think Maidenhead were tiring, and he started to try and find a little bit more possession. But really, for a player of his level.
Yeah.
A guy I was sitting next to at the stadium made a sort of decent point because he's saying like his brother, he's a twin brother with Josh
Jacob.
Jacob Murphy, yeah. And he was saying like if you sort of imagine that the two of them probably grew up together, played in the same football teams together all the way through, and now you've got one playing regularly at Newcastle United and one who's stuck on our bench in the League One side. What's the difference? I mean, it's possibly the attitude.
I always assumed it was the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode where one was the evil twin, and
Yeah, I mean,
locked in a kit with a bucket of fish heads.
well, whatever works for one of them. I mean, sort of like I mean, maybe we should start calling them Hugo.
That's probably a scarily old reference now, isn't it? That's ridiculous. But anyway, let's not delve into that one. I watched an episode the other day, literally today, we talked about Y2K, and I probably thought how many people don't even know what that is anymore. Anyway, Oxford put this game to bed finally, Robert, in the 82nd minute. Billy Bodin, second goal of the game. Do you want to just quickly run through what happened, the goal?
It's up at the end of the pitch, but it looked like he messed it up. To be honest with you, we'd started the 5 or so minutes before the goal. We were finally starting getting on top of the game. For like most of the second half, it'd been largely stalemate of Oxford having possession, not really getting forward, and sort of losing out, and then Maidenhead having the odd fleeting break. But we were finally getting some more possession on goal, and Bodin. Good work from Gudrun, actually. Gudrun didn't have a very good match, but he actually did some good work there to get the ball. And Bodin sort of like, it looked like he missed the goalkeeper made the first opportunity, saved the first shot, and he got on the rebound and managed to get that in the back of the net. So I have to admit, when the first one, I sort of turned away because I thought, oh Christ, he missed it. And I looked up again because I saw the ball was still active and saw it go into the back of the net. So I might have to see the replay on that one as well to get a proper look at it. But
there you go. You're bloody there, and he still can't talk you through it. There you go. It did sound like kind of Bodin had a second chance and just stuck it in. But
he played well, Billy Bodin, actually. I would say.
He's having a good season, isn't he? I think he's doing really well this season so far.
Mark Harris, just quickly mention him again. It was telling because where I sat, in the first half, I could see he had quite a few chances where the ball would come into him and then he would take a touch where he didn't need to take a touch, or the ball would bounce in front of him and he couldn't control it. Or there's one chance, I think it was Mills, put a cross in and it was just fractionally over his head and he couldn't get on it. He's working hard and I can see that he needs a goal. I know it's the old cliche, but he really does because He's doing everything right. It's just not going for him at the moment.
Yeah, it's the thing. I mean, more and more it goes on, the more and more it is a worry, and it's a worry that he couldn't get a goal today. As I don't imagine we'll see him on Tuesday night, and I hope actually we don't. But yeah, I think that. I mean, that's it. I mean, 2-0. It wasn't perfect, but we didn't need it to be perfect. We just had to get the result. We go into round 2 of the FA Cup, and that's kind of all you kind of wanted it to happen. As much as you want to get 6, 7, 8 goals like the likes of Bristol Rovers did and stuff like that earlier on today, if it's not the case, it's not the case. You just make sure that you don't have a bloody replay or very worst go out of the cup. Let's move on to some final thoughts and stuff. I'm just going to quickly just say on Maidenhead, because there's not really too much to say on them. Look, they gave it a really good effort today, a good account of themselves, and I'm aware of that. That is a bit like just like when you're rustling a kid's hair or tapping a dog on the head and stuff like that. Say, well done, boy, well done. But you know, they've done all right. It was a good distraction for them against what's been a bit of a shitty league season so far, and they'll hope that they can take the confidence from this one into the league season. But I do worry that this might just be a welcome distraction, and it's not kind of what their normal level is.
If that is how they play normally, I wouldn't see why they'd be in trouble for, because they looked a really decent side. They looked a little bit like shot shy up front, and there wasn't an awful lot of goal threat from them, but they did sort of look a decent. They did look very decent. But whether this was just them upping their game a good few percent because they're playing at a league side, I don't know.
Imagine so. You would
They
imagine
played
so.
They did not disgrace themselves today.
But if there are any Maidenhead fans watching this, and other than Timmy Mallett, let me know what your thoughts were on this game. Let me know what your fans made a lot of noise. Your fans were great, and let me know, you know, what your hopes and thoughts are for this season. But move on to Oxford, and yeah, it's just no one's really going to remember this game at the end of the season. It was just a case of getting the job done. What does worry me is the lack of goals for Harris. And what also worries me a little bit is with Sam Long being injured, if we do lose Finn Stevens, we are a little bit lightweight down the right-hand side of defence.
Yeah, it looked like Negro was playing there in the second half, and he was solid.
Yeah.
But that was
But
just.
but that again, I mean, it happens. I guess you're going to get that, but that is a square peg in a round hole, isn't it? If
Yeah,
Negri has to play there.
that's not anyone's idea of a long-term solution now. I was sort of seeing that people were working that Brentford might want Finn Stevens back in January, but
Well, they started talking about that on Radio Oxford because of the fact that Brentford haven't allowed Stevens to play in the FA Cup, which makes them think that maybe they might want him back. But I guess you just have. I think they're kind of finding problems that aren't there at the moment. Isn't it? That's a bit of a speculation, really, isn't it? Wild speculation.
it's a bit of a step up. And Finn Stevens is starting to play.
Yeah, but if Brentford
for a League One side.
I get what you're going to say, and I know it's crap talking over to him. I'm just going to say, if Brentford are in round 3 and they're playing a lower league side, then they might want to rest Premier League players and give youth players or young, or reserve players a chance, and that Finn Stevens would fall into that category then. But hopefully they won't call him back because he's on a season-long loan. So hopefully he can just stay at Oxford for the whole year. Who do you want? Who do you want in round 2?
Well, I mean, I'd quite like to play Swindon if that was possible. I've not checked if any of the results. I mean, I saw Swindon were up against Aldershot today, which I imagine must have been, and at home, that must have been a fairly comfortable home victory, no?
Well, I'll reveal that result at the end, but I won't spoil it for you. But yeah, so you want Swindon if they're in round 2. For me, it's got to be another, hopefully another non-league side or a struggling League 2 side at home at the Kassam that we can just easily get into round 3 of the FA Cup.
Someone like Forest Green or someone like that.
Yeah, that would be kind of ideal if they made it through. Someone like that. I mean, again, it's someone you don't want. You don't want like a Wickham away or a Bolton away or something like that. Would be horrible.
Like that, yeah.
One other thing I'm just going to say about the midfield is you're right in the Brannigan and McGuane situation, and where they really are the standout performance in that midfield. We'll see how much Henry can influence it, or how much Rodri or Goran can influence it when he comes back in. But for me, I've been a little bit disappointed in McEachran. I just don't think he's quite the level that we thought he would be. I just think he's a little bit ponderous, a little bit slow, and Oxford don't play at a very good tempo when he's in the side.
Definitely, you could tell when Marcus McGuane came on, it was suddenly like we jumped up a gear. Suddenly we were attacking, we were pressing forward, and maybe it just corresponded with Maidenhead becoming tired, possibly. But it is noticeable. And bearing in mind, we thought at the start of the season that McCracken would be sort of like the mainstay of the midfield. I agree with you. I do think he's been a little bit not underwhelming. Might be probably the most charitable way of saying it. He's not done very much yet. Even when he's had an opportunity to come on, he hasn't done an awful lot to impress. He's been solid, which is probably about the best you could describe him as.
Yeah, I agree. And finally, what's your opinion on these rumours about Manning going to Bristol City?
I think the fact is that we've got a manager who's doing well. He's going to be linked with clubs, and that's the inevitability of the situation. I would be disappointed if he went, but I don't think it's truly likely. There are a lot more managers who are out of work.
I think it'd be really surprising if he went as well, because like he seems like he's doing a good job at Oxford United, and he seems a project kind of based manager.
Yeah.
And I think he'd rather kind of get, if he did move jobs, you'd kind of feel that would happen if he'd been at Oxford for maybe like a couple of years, and then he got the opportunity to go up to a higher league. I mean, and Bristol City's a good jump up, but it's not massive, and he could find himself go there 6 months, sacked, and then back to square one again.
Yeah, I mean, he's at a club which are a second in the league. And obviously, as Oxford fans, we're not going to be we're going to be a little bit cautious. But if you were looking at this from the outside, you'll be saying Oxford have a decent chance of being in the Championship next season. One way, I know as Oxford fans, you automatically cringe about saying that. But if you're an outsider looking at the situation, you would certainly say they're certainly going to be up there.
It was like an icy chill going down my spine when you said that then. Right. That'll do for this one. Thank you, Robert, for coming on to do.
No problem.
As always, yeah, if you can hit the like button on this video, just help me out a lot. And if you can hit subscribe, that helps me out a lot as well. And I'll be back to do a more regular review of the Leyton Orient game next weekend. Actually, quite relieved that it's not Saturday, Tuesday. But before we go, what are your hand up for? What are you not in bloody school?
I was just going to say, are you going to mention the Swindon score?
Yeah, I was going to mention this.
Oh,
My goodness, like literally, give me a chance, man. Look, let me just tell you, Robert, because you wanted Swindon Town, and I want to end this video with this. But unfortunately, Robert, Swindon Town will not be in round 2 of the FA Cup. But Oxford avoided a banana skin today, but Swindon certainly didn't, because it ended Swindon 4, Aldershot 7.